Shalom, welcome to the Zera Shimshon series. The Torah begins with the letter Beis. Zera Shimshon says that this is not merely a grammatical detail. Beis points to berachah, blessing, the first sound of Torah, therefore tells us that creation, revelation, and the life of a human being are meant to move toward blessing. But that creates an immediate difficulty. Tehillim says, "Your very first utterance is truth." The Hebrew word for truth is emes, and emes begins with aleph. So why did the Torah not begin with aleph? If the first utterance of Hashem is truth, why does the first letter appear to speak about blessing instead? Zera Shimshon answers that blessing and truth are not competing ideas. True blessing grows out of truth. The Torah begins with Beis because berachah is what emes produces when truth is lived, not merely admired. The Midrash reads the commandment concerning honest weights and measures in a striking way. When a person keeps an honest weight, the Torah says, in effect, you shall have. You will have the resources with which to conduct business. But when a person keeps one large weight for buying and one small weight for selling, the Torah says, you shall not have. Dishonesty may appear to create profit, but it removes the vessel that can hold lasting blessing. This is why the Beis at the opening of Bereishis can also fulfill the verse, "Your very first utterance is truth." The Torah does not announce truth as an abstraction. It announces the fruit of truth, honest speech, honest measures, and honest dealings make room for berachah. The first letter says blessing, but inside that blessing is emes. Zera Shimshon also notices that the Torah begins with Bereishis and ends with Vesos ha-berachah, and this is the blessing. The beginning is joined to the end. The whole Torah stands between an opening, allusion to blessing, and an explicit declaration of blessing. Its commandments are not detached restrictions. They form the truthful path by which life becomes capable of receiving and transmitting good. This raises another problem. The sages teach that when a human ruler curses someone, he usually tries to damage that person's livelihood. Yet, when Hashem cursed the primordial serpent, its food was made available wherever it went. It crawls on the earth and thus is always beneath it. The serpent was punished, but its basic sustenance was secured. The same pattern appears elsewhere. Canaan was cursed to servitude, yet a servant is sustained by the household of his master. Hava received pain in childbirth, yet humanity continued through her. The earth was cursed, yet every creature is still nourished from it. These judgments are severe, but mercy remains woven into them. How can that be reconciled with the midrashic principle that blessing brings further blessing, while curse brings further curse? In the case of dishonest weights, the language sounds absolute. The false measure does not merely reduce blessing, it produces a chain in which corruption generates more corruption. Zera Shimshon distinguishes between a punishment given in response to a particular failure and a curse rooted in deliberate violation of the Torah's truthful order. A disciplinary judgment can still contain a hidden provision for life. But when a person builds a way of living upon falsehood, the very structure that carries blessing is damaged. The danger is not only one wrong act, it is the creation of a path. That explains David HaMelech words, "From your precepts I acquire understanding. Therefore, I hate every path of falsehood." Why does he say every path of falsehood? The Torah already forbids lying itself. Zera Shimshon says, David learned to fear the road that leads toward the lie. A person may say, "I have not actually cheated anyone. I have only moved close to the boundary." But repeated closeness becomes familiarity. Familiarity becomes habit, and habit can become transgression. A false path may initially look like the serpent's punishment, where some good still remains. Yet, once the path matures into rejection of a mitzvah, the curse becomes far more complete. David, therefore, does not merely hate falsehood. He hates the road that trains the soul to become comfortable with it. This teaching is intensely practical. The spiritual life is not protected only by avoiding spectacular sins. It is protected by refusing the small arrangements that make dishonesty easier tomorrow. The unequal weight begins long before the transaction. It begins when a person decides that truth can be adjusted whenever truth becomes inconvenient. Zera Shimshon then turns to a famous warning of the sages. Never consider the blessing of an ordinary person insignificant, and never consider the curse of an ordinary person insignificant. At first, this seems difficult, If a person is righteous, should not his mitzvos already bring him blessing? And if Hashem protects the lives of his devoted ones, why should he fear the angry words of an ordinary person? On the other side, if someone is wicked, his own conduct already brings consequences. Why would another person's curse be necessary? The answer is that even a righteous person can stumble. His essential direction may remain holy, yet for a time, a failure can obstruct the flow of good that would normally reach him. Zera Shimshon uses the principle that a prisoner cannot release himself from prison. A person caught inside his own constriction may need help that comes from outside his present condition. At such a moment, the sincere blessing of another person can become that assistance. It does not create righteousness where none exists. It helps restore the righteous person to the state that truly belongs to him. Conversely, when someone has opened a breach through sin, a curse spoken at that vulnerable hour may find room to take effect. This is not an invitation to superstition. Zera Shimshon does not say that every careless sentence automatically controls another person's destiny. The warning is moral. When difficult words reach us, we should examine our deeds rather than panic. If there is a breach, the answer is teshuvah. Let him return to Hashem, and he will show him mercy. The purpose of the warning is awakening, not fear. There is also a remarkable principle operating in the person who speaks the blessing. Hashem told Avraham, "I will bless those who bless you." When someone blesses a righteous person, the speaker is blessed as well. Zera Shimshon applies the principle that one who acquires something for himself can acquire it for another. The blesser first becomes connected to blessing, and from that connection, he can extend blessing outward. The opposite is also true. One who curses the righteous draws curse toward himself. Words are not empty objects thrown into the air. They shape the spiritual position of the speaker before they reach the person being addressed. This helps explain two unusual biblical episodes. David received a blessing from Avraham, who was not Jewish. During the plague that followed David's improper counting of the people, Daniel received a blessing from King Darius before being thrown into the lion's den. Why did those blessings matter? David and Daniel were righteous, but each was passing through a moment of vulnerability connected with a fault. David's senses brought judgment upon the nation. Daniel had earlier advised Nebuchadnezzar to use charity to delay punishment, an act that helped poor Jews but also postponed judgment upon a wicked king. Their merits had not disappeared, but their circumstances required help from outside the prison of that moment. The blessings of Aravnah and Dariavesh were also fitting. Ending the plague protected innocent people. Saving Daniel upheld justice. The blessing did not succeed because a non-Jew had somehow forced heaven. It succeeded because the requested good was aligned with truth, mercy, and what was proper for the righteous recipient. That distinction becomes essential when Zera Shimshon examines Lavan's blessing to Rivkah. Lavan and his household said, "Our sister, may you become thousands of myriads." Yet Rivkah remained barren until Yitzchak prayed for her. The Midrash says this prevented the nations from claiming, "Our prayer produced fruit." Why was Lavan's blessing treated differently from the blessings given to David and Daniel? Because a sentence can sound generous while carrying a corrupt intention. Lavan's words were not a pure desire for Rivkah's good. Zera Shimshon reads them as part of Lavan's deeper wish to strengthen the side of Esav and weaken the future of Yaakov. Lavan was associated with sorcery and knew that two very different lines would emerge from Rivkah. Yaakov, rooted in holiness, and Esav, rooted in the klippah, the shell that conceals the fruit. By emphasizing you, Lavan placed the focus on Rivkah's lineage through the wicked Besuel rather than upon the holiness of Yitzchak. His blessing sought to make the maternal line of corruption dominate the character of her descendants. Zera Shimshon also connects the thousands in Lavan's words with the Alufim, the chieftains of Esav. Those chieftains and kings appeared before the kings of Yaakov. The shell often appears before the fruit. Had Lavan's blessing been allowed to stand as the cause, the nations could have pointed to Esav's early prominence and claimed that Esav was the true fruit produced by their prayer. Hashem, therefore, allowed Rivkah's barrenness to continue until Yitzchak prayed. Her children then came through the prayer of the righteous husband, not through Lavan's sinister intention. Esau's chiefs might appear first, but the enduring myriads belong to Israel. What appears earlier is not always what carries the covenantal future. This is one of the chapter's strongest lessons. Not every pleasant statement is a blessing. A true blessing must agree with emes. It must seek the genuine good of the person, respect justice, and align with Hashem's purpose. Flattery, manipulation, and concealed domination do not become holy merely because they are spoken in beautiful language. Zera Shimshon then returns to the principle that blessing brings further blessing. The Torah can speak of those who bless you in a plural form while speaking of the blesser as a single person. Why? Because one sincere blessing does not remain one. Once it takes effect, it generates another blessing. The single person becomes associated with a multiplying movement of good. The same pattern applies to a curse. One curse can generate another. So, a single curser becomes connected to a plural chain of consequences. Blessing and curse are not static labels. They are reproductive forces. Each tends to produce according to its own kind. That leads to the deepest meaning of berachah in this Derush. Zera Shimshon says the primary biblical form of blessing is children. The first blessing given to humanity is be fruitful and multiply. The blessing to Noah and his sons repeats the same words. Even the first curse, directed toward the serpent, includes a reduction in its power of reproduction. Other verses also use blessing in connection with children. Behold, the heritage of Hashem is children, followed by the description of the man who fears Hashem as blessed. The pattern suggests that blessing is not only having more possessions. Blessing is the power for good life to continue beyond the present individual. Why would children be the primary blessing? Zera Shimshon gives a beautiful answer. Hashem blesses a person because He loves that person and desires to extend goodness through him. Therefore, Hashem desires that there be more people who carry that person's righteous quality. Blessing multiplies the kind of life in which Hashem delights. In the cases of Avraham and Iyov. The context required an additional meaning. Avraham had already been promised that he would become a great nation. So, I will bless you points beyond children. The sages say that even property once owned by Avraham remained blessed after it passed to someone else. Iyov's handiwork was blessed so deeply that even a small coin received from him could carry benefit. This is blessing at its highest. Good does not end at the border of ownership. It remains alive after it leaves your hand. Your presence makes people, work, resources, and places more capable of producing good. The Beis of Bereishis, therefore, contains an entire spiritual path. Blessing begins with emes. It is protected by honest measures. It is endangered by the small roads that lead toward falsehood. It can be reopened by the sincere word of another person when we are unable to release ourselves. It must be tested by intention, because Lavan proves that beautiful language can conceal a wish to dominate. And when blessing is genuine, it multiplies life beyond the one who first received it. The Torah begins with an allusion to berachah and closes with vesos ha-berachah. Between those 2 points, it teaches us how to become a vessel that blessing can trust. Speak truth, deal honestly, guard the path before it becomes a fall. Use your words to strengthen people in vulnerable moments. And do not seek blessing merely so that good will stop with you. Seek to become the kind of person through whom goodness continues. That is the essence of blessing. Truth becoming life, and life becoming goodness that can be shared, extended, and renewed. Then the first letter and the first utterance are completely united. Beis speaks of blessing, and the blessing itself reveals emes. Truth has become fruitful. Shalom.